Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day, and Happy New Year to you. Here we are on January the 2nd, 2025. 2025 already. Where did 2024 go? Amazing to think that time is flying that fast. At least it is for me. You know, look back on this year, and we've just had a great year on this show. So many wonderful guests. Over the past over 5 years now. It's amazing that we've been doing this show for so long. And on Thursdays now, the show rolls out to other parts of the state. We're excited about that. And we really appreciate the feedback. Appreciate you joining us. I particularly like the wide variety of feedback that I get from the business community, from elected officials, from just radio listeners who really want to learn more about what it takes to make Mississippi tick. And I'm thrilled to be here to bring it to you. So one of my guests over the many years that I really enjoy coming back to, I think he's a perfect January the 2nd. Here we are starting this new year. He's the perfect January the 2nd guest. Is my friend Max Higgins, who's the CEO of the Golden Triangle Development Link. We'll remind you if you haven't heard or forgotten what that is, but you may not have ever heard of it before. But we'll give you some kind of a primer on this important economic development organization. But before we go any further, let me welcome Joe Max back to the Ricky Matthews Show. Joe Max, how you doing, my friend?
Doing fine, Ricky. Thank you.
It's good to see you. You continue to look good, man. You've made a journey, a health decision journey, and you look great, my friend.
Well, thank you, sir.
It's good to see you. When you look back on 2025, listen to me. I'm already speeding past a year. When you look back on 2024, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate it for your organization?
Well, it was 2024 was a building year for us. 2023 we announced a bunch of stuff, and 2024 we built it, or we're still building, but built a lot of it. So we, during the calendar year of 2024, we had $3.5 billion worth of projects under construction. So instead of recruitment, it was more what we call the aftercare and the hand holding and the making sure we got all the things we had to do that we said we would do when we won a deal.
Amazing, though. You consider, I remember well what you talked about. You said, a $1 billion project isn't really acceptable anymore. You want multiple billions of dollars. But at the same time, and we'll come back to this in a second, I think about the Taylor group of companies there in that region and what they're bringing to the community. I think about the work that you've done to get a hotel development in Starkville. You got to have the medium stuff. You got to take care of your long-term, customers. At the same time, you got to bring new stuff in. You really got to cover that spectrum, don't you?
We do. And actually, starting about summer of 2024, Bill Fruth, came in, did a new study for us, and he said, you got to do a better job of taking care of your existing industries and your small to medium-sized ones. And so we moved one of our key personnel over to that and put her in charge of existing business retention and expansion. And she has probably been busier since about July than any of us in the office. And they are the 10 or 13 job creations, 20 here, the 5 and 10 there, and working them through the process. But I think now we've got a pretty good handle on those small to medium ones, and some of those guys are, Quality Beverage has been around here for 25 years, family-owned business. They're doubling their production, building a new plant. So we're working those guys, but we're still working the big stuff too.
Well, look, you also did a study with Polycom, and I remember seeing a headline where you said we've really, really got to stay more focused on community issues. And, there's a lot there. But I think, you mentioned the one study, I mentioned another. What's really interesting, and it's been written about you guys more than once, obviously, is that you take such a data-driven approach. I mean, you believe what gets measured gets done, and you really have to understand the numbers, and that's been one of your keys to success. But anyway, we'll come back to all that in just a minute. Why don't you, for people who have not heard us talk before, Talk about the Golden Triangle Development Link and what you guys are all about.
Well, Golden Triangle Development Link, I will tell you, is probably the only true regional economic development group in the state. And when I say that, there's been some deals that communities have partnered on a specific project, or in the case of Hattiesburg, the city of Hattiesburg sits over 2 counties, so obviously that's multiple counties. But we are 3 counties. We're Starkville, West Point, and Columbus, and the 3 counties, Lowndes, Clay, and Octavia, and they all help fund us, and we run a true 3-county economic development group, primarily focused on industrial recruitment, industrial park development, that kind of stuff. And we do provide technical assistance for TIFs and RETAs for retail projects and stuff like that, technical assistance. And then as the cities and or counties need our expertise, we help with other things other than just the industrial recruitment, but primarily industrial recruitment.
I see where you're building a new office.
We are. I actually, my wife and I went out there yesterday, walking through, and are liking the way the progress is coming. I think June is when the contract says we'll move in. I think maybe May, and it's right in front of the Golden Triangle Airport. So the Golden Triangle Development Link will be on property owned by the Golden Triangle Airport, and we will be at the front door of the airport, right in the middle of our biggest industrial park is where our office will be.
That's so super exciting. I've learned a lot from you about what it takes to be successful, and I think it might be a good idea to kind of take a step back for a second and talk about the enormous development, in fact, the enormous investment that you guys have put into mega sites over the years and how that has paid dividends. We'll talk about that for sure, but I'm curious, before we even get started, do other parts of the state take a similar approach where they've been willing to invest tens of millions of dollars in mega sites the way that you have?
Well, I don't think it's just the state, Ricky. I think it's the whole country. I mean, Tennessee Valley Authority is 80,000 square miles of territory. All are parts of Tennessee and parts of 6 other states, but 80,000 square miles. Tupelo's done 1 mega site. Chattanooga's done 1 mega site. Huntsville's done 1 mega site. And it goes, there's 9 of them. And we are, I think in March, we'll certify the Cinco mega site, and this will be our 5th one. So, to answer the question, I don't think anybody does it quite like we do it. But it does cost a lot of money. But the good news is now we've done it long enough that we're playing on house money. And we take our elected officials have been very, very good to us to allow us to use a portion of the profits and the resources that we make on deal 1, on deal 2, and then on deal 3, and then on deal 4. The fact of the matter is we're going to be able to acquire the Cinco mega site and pay for it on profits generated from the aluminum mill, and not really cost the taxpayers of Lowndes County anything to acquire it. Now, we'll still have some costs to water and sewer it and road it and rail it and all that, but again, we think those are going to be paid for with what we call the peace dividend, profits that we've made on other deals.
The peace dividends, I love that. When you and I talked last, it's been a while since we talked, but I do remember you talking specifically about that site, and so people can have a sense of the scope and scale of something like that. Do I remember that it takes a $50 million commitment? Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah. To purchase, it's a 1,500-acre site. To purchase the site, develop the water and the sewer and the roads, the rail roads are still in addition to that. It's about $53 million that Lowndes County Board of Supervisors have agreed to help fund. Now, some of that will come in total will come in grants, but it's still going to be $35-40 million probably we'll have in loans for this project. But you need to understand that we're not going to put a nickel or a dime on that. We're going to we're already showing it. We recently got cut on a project that was a $1.5 billion project that was looking at all of it. I understand that we could have a visitor in just a matter of weeks that is looking at the entire site as well. So, if somebody comes, it'll be a home run. We won't put a $50 50,000 square foot building over there.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that really clearly. Now, do you also remember that this will be your grandest mega site yet?
Yeah, I think it's our grandest, and by all accounts, and I'm talking about state officials, TVA officials, other economic developers, economic development consultants. One of the consultants was here the other day on some grants for the site. She certified our first two mega sites where the steel mill and pack car are located. She also brought us pack car back years ago. And we were driving through the site, and I said, what do you think? And she said, this is your best work to date. I said, how would you think it would rank with the mega sites you've seen in other states around the Southeast? And she said, among the tops.
That is super impressive. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk about why this mega site and the infrastructure related to it is so important to attracting the kind of big opportunities that you're talking about. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Joe Max Higgins, the CEO of Golden Triangle Development Link. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We're visiting with my friend Joe Max Higgins, who's the Golden Triangle Development Link CEO, and they're the principal regional economic development arm for Starkville, West Point, and Columbus, Mississippi. And he's been serving in this capacity since 2003. He has a really interesting approach, and he's learned a lot. And every time he does something he wants it to be bigger and grander. If you think, again, we were mentioning this is your fifth mega site. The success that you've had with the other four is almost unparalleled, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's unparalleled, but it's pretty dang cool. You got a $3 billion. Well, it didn't start as that, but you got a $3 billion steel mill on one. You got a $1 billion engine plant on another one. You got about a $500 million tire plant on the third one, and a $2.5 billion aluminum mill going on the fourth one. I like to tell our elected officials, I said, hey, if this one's a flop, we're still batting 800.
Right. Isn't that big? But look, at the end of the day, as I mentioned before we went to break, acquiring the land and then putting the kind of infrastructure in that, and not just any infrastructure. It's the evolution of the learning about what it takes to be successful with a mega site. The infrastructure, give people a sense. You kind of gave us the headlines about it, but give us a sense of what it takes to make a mega site work. Well, all right. So this mega site is 1,500 acres. It has railroad design from the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Southern Railroad now into the site. We have paid for the scoping and engineering with TVA to provide 150 megawatts to the site. That engineering, design, public hearings, all that stuff's in progress. And then water and sewer. And while it will be integrated in our other, it's on the north side of Highway 82, everything else on the south side, it'll be integrated into the water system. Right now, we have 5,000 gallons of pumping capacity in water. We will add another 3,000 gallons of pumping capacity. We'll add another filter plant, about 3,000 gallon a minute filter plant. We're going to build a 1 million gallon water tank. That will be 3 million gallons of water we'll have in storage in the air. And then it'll have a massive pump station and force main to the wastewater plant that the Industrial Authority owns, that already has about 3.5 million gallons of surplus capacity. So right out of the blocks, we're going big, and we know that a mega site is going to use a lot of water, it's going to use a lot of sewer, it's going to use a lot of electricity, and probably the neatest thing is, before we ever buy it, Atmos Gas is running a brand new big high pressure gas line around the perimeter of the site that will serve the aluminum mill, but also picks up the Cinco mega site for free. So all the gas improvements are in effect done. And so we're ready to go on big gas, soon to be on big electricity, big water, big sewer. One of the things that I've been keeping up with you guys, one of the things that I've noticed is that you still got, like I saw a headline talking about 18 miles of new lines and metal poles would connect Clay subdivision to West Point and Artesian subdivision in Lowndes County. But the amount of infrastructure just around the area to support your efforts, I mean, that's just an ongoing process, isn't it?
It is. I mean, when I came here in 2003, there was one 161. That's a distribution line, a transmission line coming to serve our park. One line. Today we have five. We have five coming into the park. Soon to have six. Soon to have six. So we will have six 161 transmission lines coming to serve the electrical loads in that park. Now, understand that the steel mill is TVA's biggest customer in the entire TVA system. And the aluminum mill is either going to be second or third in the entire TVA system. So those two companies by themselves will use about 650 megawatts. And the Cinco mega site is being modeled for 150 megawatts. So we're getting up with those loads, not counting the other companies, near a nuclear plant capacity.
Wow, that's really incredible. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, or in the first segment of the show, where you guys are really known for your analytical approach. Now you're working with certainly some economic consultants. You're doing a lot of economic studies to try to sense where you are, but data is driving everything, isn't it?
It is. It is, and we call that watching game film. Each and every person in our office, we're looking to see what other people are doing. We're looking to see what the trends are. When we find out deals that we get beat, we try to find out why we got beat, what we can improve upon. But yeah, it's that's the name of the game. It's no longer a piece of paper and a set of colored pencils and drawing something up and saying, hey, come here. You've got to show them why it makes sense. And, everything from engineering graduates at Mississippi State University to what the university's turning out to the skill level to numbers. We track where everybody works here in the Golden Triangle. I mean, by zip code, we track exempt and non-exempt employees. The industries are good enough to give us that. Our workforce actually comes from 37 counties and 2 states here in this region.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it, but whether it's working with the MDA, focused on, man, we got to stop brain drain. The way to stop brain drain is we got to start making sure that young people, and really it's not just about young people, but people in general, understand the kind of business, the career opportunities is really what I'm trying to say, that are available to them. I'm thinking about the Advanced Composite Institute at Mississippi State and the work that's happening there, but it comes in so many different forms, doesn't it, Joe?
It does. And look, there's some cool things MSU's doing. I won't step on them, but we had a meeting with them last week, right along that workforce deal. That we're not only giving somebody an engineering degree, but let's give them an engineering degree and let's go ahead and have them the clearances that they need to go to work for these defense-related or aerospace companies or whatever we're locating day one. And I think we're getting it in that arena where a lot of people don't.
I mean, it's coming back to the Composites Institute. Think about the work that Mississippi State's doing. You think about the robotics work that's happening, how East Mississippi Community College is listening and making adjustments in their plans. But you really got to pay attention to stakeholders, don't you?
Oh, you do. And that's the most important thing of what they need, what's happening, what's going on with their industry. Because remember, the companies that we have here, they're not minimum wage companies. They're 6-figure and better jobs in most cases. They're extremely automated. A lot of robotics. When you go in PACCAR, there are 1,000 people that work at PACCAR, but there's a lot more robots in there that do a lot of the stuff, the high tolerance stuff that has to be done, and the people are making sure the systems are working right. They retool that. They're in a couple $100 million retooling of that right now, because every year they have to change standards because emissions and stuff like that change on the federal level. So they're in a constant state of flux of adding and doing new things, and everybody else is too. And we just got to help them stay ahead of the curve.
Well, you and I talked about this before, and we talked about the economic regions of the state. I particularly have an interest in the Mississippi Delta, and wish we had a little more focused on that. But when you think about what you've been able to do, you think some of the outcomes, for example, improving the workforce. You think about the kind of, and you just mentioned a few minutes ago, but industrial expansions that are taking place. You think about reducing. You think the community in general, poverty, and what you've been able to reduce poverty. When you talk about these high-paying jobs in the area where you represent, you can see the impact of those higher paying jobs in so many different ways, can't you?
Oh, you can, and you go to PACCAR, they probably got 35-40% female, probably 65% African American employees. Those folks, they left. The job they got now is a lot better than the one they had, and subsequently they're moving up in their housing. They're picking school districts that have better scores and moving their children to there. They're doing what upperly mobile people do, and we're watching the amount of people that are on assistance go down fairly dramatically. It wasn't that long ago that West Point was at 22% unemployment, highest in the state. I haven't looked in the last probably 6 weeks, but they were in the threes the last time I looked.
And yeah, we're into this segment. We'll pick it up on the other side, but that is like a fundamental remaking of the community when you can achieve that kind of a goal. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Joe Max Higgins. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. And, listen, we're having a terrific conversation with Joe Max Higgins from the Golden Triangle Development Link. And I really enjoy catching up with him. He's not just a good dude, but he's a smart dude when it comes to economic development. I've said this on my show many times, Joe, that Mississippi's got a lot of problems to solve. Again, they got the poverty that exists in places like the Mississippi Delta and a very farm-centric kind of economy. We've got healthcare issues. We've got hospital issues. We got a lot of issues. But the quickest way to solving a lot of our problems, and you mentioned it just then when you talked about West Point, had unemployment at 22%, and last you looked, it was 3%. The quickest way to solve a lot of problems is to put into place terrific economic development success, because the reverberating impact of that on communities in so many different ways is transformative, really, isn't it?
It is. It is, and you see it, and I can tell you, when you go back to those days that West Point was 22% unemployment, one thing that town never did, that county, they never lost their spirit, they never lost their fight. But God, they had just a run of bad luck that wouldn't quit, and once we turned the corner with those guys, it's just been win, and you can. When you go there and you go downtown, you go to a restaurant, you go in Walmart over there, you can just tell. Now, every place has still got problems, but people having jobs and hope go a hell of a long way towards getting where you need to be.
It really does. There's no doubt about that. You and I chatted a little bit about this the last time we were together, but it's worthy of mentioning again. I've often said that Tate Reeves will go down in history. His legacy will be that he was an economic development governor. Again, he could spread his leadership out and try to solve all the world's crisis, or he could really focus his attention. And the man has focused his attention. And one of the things, again, this notion of what gets measured gets done, you pay attention to this. When you look at the micros across the state of Mississippi, under Tate Reeves' leadership, there's been pretty significant improvement, hasn't there?
Yeah, we started tracking the metros and the micros. Going back to the Barber administration, and we color them green, yellow, or red. And red is you did worse than you did last year, yellow is you stayed the same, and green is you did better. And one of the things that I look at for monitoring how a governor is doing in economic development is how many greens does he have? And Haley didn't start out first term with a whole lot of greens, and then he got more his second term. Bryant did well his first term, fell off his second term precipitously, and so in my mind, Governor Bryant inherited some from Governor Barber. To be honest with you, Governor Reeves didn't inherit all that good a situation, and he quickly turned it. And this second term is going to be just phenomenal. I think he will. I'm not sure we'll be able to put up the numbers that we're putting up in his administration moving forward. I hope we can, but it's one for the records. It's one for the books.
And you think about, the role that the Mississippi Development Authority plays in this as a key partner. I mean, again, it takes a village to be successful from an economic development point of view. This is not about Joe Max Higgins. This is about, it could be a city council. It could be a board of supervisors. It's a sort of a regional economic development authority, the MDA, the governor. I mean, everybody's got a role to play, don't they?
They do. And it's like a ball team. And you may end up being that big kid that goes in and gets 5 fouls, leaning on their center. You may be the 3 shooter. You may be the defensive specialist. Not everybody gets to be a star every day, but we've all got roles to play. And if everybody will play their role, more often than not, we'll win.
Hey, so, I love the way you said watching game film. You never leave it. You hopefully are not leaving much to chance. You're really focused on being honest about where you are. So you can't go to where you want to go if you don't know where you are now. So this current process analysis, maybe if you gain a new customer, a new big development, you want to understand why you won. If you didn't get one, you want to understand why you didn't lose, why you lost, why you didn't get it. But you have to be super, super aware and honest about where you are now. Because if you're not going to be able to make the proper adjustments to go where you want to go. I mean, you're only as good as your last performance in this business. You never truly arrive, do you, Joe Max?
No. And I will tell people that the Golden Triangle went from no expectation 20 years ago to a sense of entitlement now. Right now they're saying, when's the next deal coming? When's the next deal? They're not even celebrating the ones that we've won in the past and that aren't even up and running yet. But no, you've got to sit there and figure out why you're losing, what you can do better, and try to fix those things. You don't want to get beat by the same reason 2 times in a row. It's bad enough to get beat. You don't want to get beat because you don't have this time and you don't have this the next time. You need to start figuring out a way to fix the problems.
It means a serious attention to detail. A serious attention to detail. How do you keep track of that?
Let me give you a real example.
Yeah.
It wasn't that many years ago that I had 300 or 400 megawatts laying on the ground in West Point, and I probably had 300 laying on the ground at Golden Triangle, where you just show up, bring your extension cord, and let's go. TVA, I think, in a search of trying to be more green and be more ecologically friendly, gotten away from a lot of base loads. Well, now getting power is an issue, and we started finding ourselves with the answer that it would take 48 months to get power to the Cinco mega site. And we said, well, that's not acceptable. Nobody will wait that long. And so never before ever done ever, we paid to have the engineering and the environmental done up front to get ready to serve 150 megawatts, that about May or June, we'll be able to tell a prospect within 24 months we can have 150 megawatts to your door. You can't get your plant built before then. You sign this paper, we'll have your power. Those communities that are sitting around and still having to wait on 48 months, they just won't win. You got to figure out where the problem is, what the solution is, and how to solve it.
It's a big deal. You and I haven't talked about this at all, but I would assume that the economic development community, especially as it relates to what you just talked about, permitting and all the issues that come with that, that there's general excitement about President Trump coming into office.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you go back and look at what was happening the last time, and this time it seems even different to the better. It seems like, he is getting a little bit of a honeymoon period. It looks like they're not going to fight him on a lot of his appointments. Energy is important. I think Musk understand Elon Musk. Elon Musk is building the largest data center in the country in Memphis, Tennessee right now. He was having trouble getting power from TVA. He just decided he was going to bring his own generation in, build his own generation, make his own power for his own AI center. That was unheard of until a year ago. I've got 3 projects looking at this now that are 2 of them are looking at doing the same thing.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, my old friend, God rest his soul, Anthony DePazzi, the former president of Mississippi Power, and I used to talk about independent power producers and what the potential threat was to the established power companies and whatever. But did it shock you that Musk went that direction?
No, because he needs to get to profitability. He needs to get to profitability, and the bureaucracy that takes so long, you can't succeed, and so they just short circuit it. I heard that they were in a meeting and they were saying it was taking 24 months to get transformers delivered, and he said, "Well, I can get them in 8 months. I'll just buy them, and you can pay me back." And I think what that's doing is showing government bureaucracy that the private sector is going to move, and if you expect to support them, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to move just as quickly.
I think one of the biggest things that Trump is bringing to the discussion now is a realization, excuse me, of how much the government bureaucracy slows everything down. We can't have progress because it's just so slow. And if there's anything he's bringing to the table, it's not only an awareness of that, but a willingness to go tackle that. Hey, when we come back on the other side, I want to talk about what some of those implications might ultimately be when we continue our conversation with Joe Max Higgins on the other side. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. Listen, I don't care where you come from. You might be an elected official. You might be in the business community. You might just be somebody listening who just really wants to understand better what it takes to be successful. And, Mississippi too often is thought of as being last in so many different ways, but we're winning right now. Winning is important. And the fastest way to lift all boats is to get that tide up. And the reality of the tide is economic development is probably one of the quickest way to do that. And what Joe Max Higgins and I were talking about, that also is true for America. You think about what Trump is doing to bring real attention to not just the bureaucracy and how it slows things down, but things we might be able to do to streamline the bureaucracy. It could literally unleash incredible power inside America in ways we haven't even thought about. Isn't that true, Joe Max?
Absolutely.
So what comes to your mind? I mean, what is it that you think could be some of the implications?
Well, environmental permitting, for going back to the Bush, Daddy Bush's inauguration, he said we would have no net loss of wetlands. And that's when some bureaucrats at the Corps started looking at wetlands and how they're defined in Section 404 of the Clean Water Act and how they enforce those kind of things. There was a court case last year that was decided called Sackett that said, hey, you've gone to an extreme, so we're going to go back. They're going to start defining stuff differently. They did. The court said that they had to do that. Well, now the court's changed it again and said, well, we're still going to we're going to call it something different and keep it the same rules. But the amount of time, effort, and money that we spend just getting ready to do a deal, the Cinco mega site, we will spend probably in the neighborhood of $1.2, $1.4 million on just environmental, cultural resources, due diligence, getting ready to develop that site. We haven't even bought the site yet, and we're spending that kind of money on it. There's got to be a better mousetrap. And I'm hoping that with the Musk and Trump and all those guys looking at this will streamline this. I don't think we should care about our environment. We should make sure that we do the right things, but the bureaucracy is a bit much and has been for probably well over 2 decades.
Well, in these areas, it's you're going to put the potential savings in a bunch of different buckets, okay? But in the area of executive orders, where he can administratively make changes, I bet they already have a decision on a lot of these issues that impact economic development. I bet they're going to shock the world with some executive decisions right off the bat that's going to unleash God only knows what in terms of the opportunities to move forward and build a strong economy for America. Certainly we're going to see that on the energy side for sure.
Yeah, and here's the deal. Just the workers knowing that the bureaucracy is not going to be accepted anymore, just thinking that, hey, I might lose my job if I don't do my job. There's a lot to be said for that.
There really is. Hey, listen, have you been to one of the Ivy League schools lately and done any presentation work there?
I've just last week they gave me my dates to be at Harvard, and the date that he has me on the agenda that I think I can make is April Fool's Day. So I'm going to be at Harvard Business School April Fool's Day to do a couple of case studies with the MBA students, and I always enjoy that. I probably learn more from them than they learn from me, and we always agree that we look at the world totally different, and that's okay. That's okay.
Hey, but Joe Max, it is so interesting to me because I know what it's like. I mean, you and I have chatted about this to some extent. People have a vision of Mississippi. And those of us who travel outside of Mississippi carry with us a bit of a burden to dispel the myths that people have about our great state. And, you go in and you get with your accent and your initial approach, they probably they think they have you figured out. And you probably play with that a little bit, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Bill Whitaker said, "You're a good old boy with Harvard smarts," and then apologized for it. And I said, Bill, I said, you don't need to apologize. Where I live, where I work, in the space I operate in, that's about the best compliment you could ever give somebody.
So when you're dealing with those students, is there a moment in their eyes where they realize, "Ooh, wait a minute, the guy I thought I was going to hear from and the guy I'm now hearing from, it just occurred to me, wow, I can learn something from him." Do you see it in their faces when they?
Oh yeah. And what happens is they give them some role playing, and then they go over some decisions that we made, and they don't tell them the end of the story. They say, should you rent a helicopter for $27,000 for the day? And most of them say, "Oh no, that could feed so many people," or "That's pandering to a CEO's ego. You should not do that." Then when we explain that we had a small weather window, that we had to be in 4 places in a short period of time, and why we did it, they go, "Oh, okay, we get it." I'll never forget one of them said, "Well, would you be better off than giving those incentives to give those people the money? Give those people the money instead of give the incentives to the company the money." I said, "Well, we are." And they said, "Well, no, you're not." And I said, "Yeah, we are. They just got to show their ass up every week to get a piece of it."
Right, exactly. Joe Max Higgins, it's been great to spend some time with you, my friend.
Thank you. Y'all have a good year, and let's make 2025 better than 2024.
Happy New Year to everybody. Listen, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.